The framework for continued negotiations with Iran has been agreed upon. This comes on the heels of a letter from rogue Republicans in Congress, as well as a visit from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What should we expect from all this? That's next on Politik Focus. Joining us today, we have Satvik Nambrar, a staff writer for the JHU Politik, and Liam Haviv, the president and founder of Ideal Voting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So to start off, was this letter congressional overreach?
Yeah, I definitely think it is congressional overreach. If you look at the historical precedent, there's really no historical precedent for this many senators writing something to a foreign government or negotiating with a foreign government. The only Republicans have pointed out, John Kerry in the 1980s went to Nicaragua and met with some of the leaders there during that situation. But other than that, these one-off kind of isolated events, there hasn't really been a major political move by this many senators. And for that reason, there's no historical precedent, and speaking in the present tense, I don't really think that it was appropriate. The senators should have handled their disagreements internally. So in my opinion, it is a major congressional overreach.
What do you think?
I think this presidency, for the most part, has been defined by overreaches of at least two of the three bodies of government. I'm a little bit torn. I absolutely think that it was not a good move. I was really not pleased. But I think we are walking the line of, or at least at this point, President Obama is walking the line of a constant spitting match with Congress. And I think that is, no justification for how they acted, but somebody somewhere is going to have to step up and say that, we're going to be the bigger person in this situation. Because you can't walk into Congress in a State of the Union and say, I don't want your help, and expect friendly love and hug negotiations. And you can't send a letter to a foreign dignitary and turn on your president and say, we're still part of the United States.
So do you think this has any legitimacy?
I think as a letter, no, it makes us look bad. I don't think much has made us look good, and quite honestly, extending the negotiations made us look weak. I think there are a number of things making us look weak. I think the fact that one of our strongest allies, whether Obama gets along with Bibi or not, there's no dialogue and another spitting contest between them. And yet a country that just 2 weeks ago, Ayatollah Khomeini said he hates America in a public speech, and we're sitting and having negotiations with him, is an incredible double standard. I think there's a point at which you say, okay, we're looking for peace and all that, but when Bibi, like him or not, whatever you feel about him, when this is an ally who says we are allies, and you won't talk to him, and it's a very public, disgusting feud between two dignitaries that are supposed to be at least cordial, and there are and then on the opposition there's a leader saying that we hate America and we're sitting down to talk. I think overall America's not looking so good. I don't think this letter did much for us except continue the feud within American politics.
Satvik, what did you think of Netanyahu's visit to Congress? Did you think that was uncalled for? Did you think it was a positive step in the right direction?
I completely agree with Liam in that this personal feud between Obama and Netanyahu is, something that is just quite ugly and is playing out in the public eye. And I'm not very sure if Netanyahu should have accepted the congressional offer to speak, but I believe the congressional offer should not have been extended in the first place for him to speak. I think that Congress was playing on the personal antipathy between Obama and Netanyahu, and I don't see the point. I think we all knew all along what Netanyahu's position was going to be, which was to oppose any kind of talks or lifting of sanctions, and just bringing him here and having him come behind Obama's back just makes the situation worse, and it's just a bad situation that's continuing to deteriorate.
So clearly, there is significant discord between Congress and Obama on this issue. So how do you think this strengthens or weakens the U.S. in the foreign arena? How does this make us look, besides a few embarrassing gaffes? Like, what is going to be the greater impact of this? Either of you.
Okay. I think embarrassing gaffes is about as far down as of our issues go. I think foreign policy-wise, I don't know if we've looked this weak or incompetent as a country since maybe the first 2 decades of the 20th century. I think there's been, I'm all for idealism, I'm all for hoping things work, but there's been a naivete about President Obama that I liken to Wilson a little bit. That things are all going to work out, and I don't think we look good. I mean, the President Putin, their economy is not doing well there, and somehow we don't look dominant. Now, if the goal is for America to lessen its play in the world stage, then I don't know if we're doing exactly a good job of that either, and I don't know if we've decided what we want to do. But right now we're extending negotiations, we're fighting with our allies, we're making concessions with enemies to a point where we have to decide, is it something we can trust? And I just don't think we look good at all.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And this is a pattern that's developed in the Obama presidency. If you look at the reset with Russia, the pivot to Asia, the red line with Syria, that they cannot use chemical weapons, and now this negotiating with basically a pariah government, it's just fundamentally weakening our leverage and our hegemony as like the undisputed power by catering to these other governments. And I agree with Liam in that we're caught in between being the Rhodes police officer and kind of stepping back and being behind the scenes. You saw that with the strikes in Libya. What role would the United States play? And I think we're seeing it again here in the negotiations.
So how do you think the Iranian government is going to continue to respond? Obviously, they've come out in recent days as being anti-America, as they have in the past, but moving forward, they are still continuing these talks. So what do you think we should expect?
I think we should just expect more of the same until and unless we see internal pressure from the Iranian people, or the sanctions really working, which we haven't seen so far. I think their position is going to change. They're just going to play hardball. They're going to continue to make America and Obama look weak, and I don't see this situation changing for the better unless and until we see a political shift within the Iran.
I think they're loving every second of it. I think they're sitting very comfortably in these negotiations. They've just had all their sanctions lifted, and they get to keep, I think it was 6,140 centrifuges, and they promised that, no nukes are being made, but there was nothing to stop the infrastructure of what has already been made, and there's going to be increased IAEA investigation, which has done little for, 7 of the other countries that have. North Korea won't let us look. Israel still says they don't have nukes and all this stuff. It's very easy to control how they look. And right now we've stopped Congress, theoretically, with the plan from stopping the sanctions. And they're working on a law to make sure that they go through. Right now, Iran is loving it, and they've somehow held their negotiations. Bibi, winning his election, said some, not so smart things that made it easier for them to exploit this discord between America and Israel. And I think they have a very good idea that they can say we hate America and still sit down at a table with President Obama and work out a deal that betters them.
Mm-hmm. So moving back to domestic politics, obviously there's a lot of political power plays just within Washington. So moving forward, if these talks fall apart, what do you think the impact will be on 2016, especially with Obama finishing up the end of his term? How do you think the political parties back home are going to play off of this?
If Politico wrote today that if Obama's negotiations and everything are successful and there's no backtracking from Iran, then it could be the highlight of his foreign politics presidency. I mean, that's certainly possible. I don't know if we'll see the immediate effects after 2 years, but if there is an issue and we start seeing Iran gaining nuclear weapons, nuclear capabilities, and we see increased problems from non-state actors, from all of that stuff, if Americans don't feel safe at home, then it's not going to look really good for the Democratic Party, because there's only so long that we can say, foreign issues are not our concern, we need to keep it at home. Because safety is ultimately a really big concern for everybody. I think Netanyahu was probably banking on a Republican winning when he came and made his speech, and it's going to be definitely interesting to see how the relationship with Iran and with Israel changes if there's a switch in parties holding office.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it's hard to predict right now because many Americans' political memories are very short. But if the situation does continue to deteriorate to 2016, like Liam said, we're probably going to want the party of the hawks, the Republicans, who talk big on the foreign policy issues. And we've had the Democrats now in power for 8 years, or at least in the presidency, and there's been little done to improve our foreign policy. You could point to killing of Osama bin Laden as perhaps the biggest achievement. In most arenas, everything has gotten worse. And in 2016, I think Americans are going to take a long, hard look at our place in the world and how we have been treating our allies the past 8 years and our enemies. And if this situation doesn't get better and if it gets worse, I think they may conclude that it's time for a change.
All right, Liam, Satvik, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Emily Herman, and thank you for joining us on Politik Focus. See you next time.